All right. I should be live now. All right. Hi, you guys. I hope you guys are having a good day. I'm just making sure I have the chat pulled up and everything so I can read what you guys are saying. So, this is my first public solo live. So, I am like a little nervous. Like before this, I was meditating, just being like breathing, doing all that nice stuff. So, as you guys know, and as many of you I'm sure voted for, today's topic is all about the feeling of going backwards in your healing journey. Especially recently, I don't know about you guys, but I've been feeling like the old patterns or like my old self, my original programming and like my limiting beliefs have been coming up a lot and have been coming to the surface and bothering me more, I guess you could say. So, and just so you guys know, I have my notes up so I make sure I stay on track, because otherwise I'll just go on 100 side tangents, which also could be a good thing. Who knows? And hey, you guys, thank you for interacting in the chat. I'm so happy that you guys are here and that you guys are excited for today's topic, because I'm excited for today's topic. So, anyways, so as I said, many of us recently have been experiencing these feelings of like going backwards and feeling like as we're progressing on our journey, suddenly all of these old thought patterns and limiting beliefs are coming to the forefront. And it's like, wait, why do I feel like I'm in this same loop again? And even though you may have more awareness than you did previously, you feel like you don't have as much control over these programs than you once did. So as I said, it feels like you're drowning in these programs and almost like falling for these unconscious patterns instead of, oh, I have like these old thoughts, but I'm aware of them and I'm able to like do what I want to do anyway. And when this happens, you start to question like, how far have I really come? Have I really grown that much if I'm feeling the same way I was feeling a year ago in this period of time? So, what I want to start off by saying is going backwards doesn't really exist. And what I mean by that is if these old thought patterns are coming back full force and are coming to the front of your mind, what happens is these traits that you have perceived yourself to like evolve from, or traits that you think you've outgrown, when they come back, you're like, wait a minute, I thought I was over this. When in reality, sometimes certain traits will almost become dormant. So it's like if there's something your whole life that you've perceived as a mountain and one day it erupts, it's like, when did that mountain become a volcano? It was always a volcano, it was just dormant, right? So it's kind of the same thing with healing, because our ego helps us navigate the world. And there's actually someone who I follow, and he said something that I really liked. His name is Christian Stockwell. And what he said was, if you didn't have your ego, your trauma would just come up all the time. But your ego is able to direct you in certain ways and have the world be something that you can interact with, which is why we suppress things, so we can deal with our day-to-day lives without having like our traumas like come up all the time to be addressed. Whenever I go live, I'm like, am I making sense right now? Because in my videos, I can edit it out. But anyways, I'm just going to keep going with what I'm saying, and hopefully you guys get it. What was I saying? Ego. Right. So some of these traits will be dormant because in that period of time, you're not ready to address it. So you gain a new state of awareness and you're going to almost get like a taste of what that's like. And I'm going out of order with my notes, but I want to show you a visual that I think I've shown this on my Patreon, and to some people I've done readings for, but I don't think I've shown this on my public YouTube. So when you raise your vibration, or when you reach a higher state of consciousness or awareness or whatever you want to label it, it's like you fill a cylinder or a glass jar with liquid. But what happens is it's like soda and these air bubbles collect on the top. So you'll reach a higher vibration than is actually sustainable for you to maintain. And so since you don't have a solid vibration as you reach this new state of awareness, these air bubbles are going to pop. And then what happens is you are going to fall backwards. It's going to feel like you're going backwards when in reality, you're just collapsing this experience that was never sustainable in the first place. And in order to be sustainably at this higher vibration or higher state of awareness or consciousness, you have to address the lower vibrations and collapse those air bubbles and collapse the faults in your logic. And so this is where spiritual bypassing comes in. Or even just, not just spiritual bypassing, but bypassing healing, self-awareness in general, is we don't look at the faulty parts of our program, because as we deprogram, we integrate new programs into our mind. So for example, if I have the belief of I'm not beautiful, I'm going to try to collapse that program and integrate the new program, I am beautiful. And then what's going to happen is I'm going to be like, wow, I'm beautiful, I'm gorgeous, I love myself. When I look in the mirror, I feel really happy. But then there's these dormant aspects of the old program that's still within me. And so now that I'm at this new higher vibration, now that I'm at this new state of awareness where I'm able to handle these deeper layers of the belief that I'm not beautiful or that I'm not pretty enough, these same thoughts and emotions are going to come back forward because I'm ready to address the next layer of them. And so what we experience is like, oh my God, I'm going backwards. Oh my God, like, why am I looking in the mirror and being like, God, why do I look so gross? Why am I back here? Like, why do I feel like this all over again? And it's because there's this stuff that you weren't ready to deal with this density before, but at this new state of awareness, you're able to integrate it now. So don't fall for the trap of thinking that you're going backwards when in reality, you are now just addressing the deeper layers of that thing you initially addressed. And so this is honestly, from a human perspective, pretty annoying because all the things we think we dealt with, it's the universe or I guess ourselves is just like, just kidding, you have to deal with this again, but at like a deeper layer and learn how to meet this aspect of yourself again. And as I said, this is where spiritual bypassing comes in, because then when these bad thoughts or bad emotions or limiting beliefs come up again, people are like, no, nope, not doing it. I'm just going to be like, no, I am beautiful. But you're lying to yourself. So you're trying to force this thought into your head of like, I am beautiful, instead of holding space for the emotion that doesn't feel beautiful or doesn't feel good enough, right? So, hell yeah, I feel like I did that well. Just giving myself props. And it's interesting, like I find myself to be I observe my mind a lot and I'm very like analytical of myself. So I think that can be good because I have a lot of self-awareness. But then at the same time, it's like it's a two-sided coin. I also overthink a lot. So anyways, welcome to my mind. Here it is, unedited. All right. Traits may be dormant and come up when you're ready to address them. Yeah, and so basically going backwards is really just the resurfacing. So it's an illusion of going backwards because in your experience, it feels that way. But in reality, it's just expansion. Oh my gosh. Sorry, this was like a cool visual I just got, which is like, if your consciousness is like this size, just for the sake of simplicity, if it's this size, and within this circle, you are consciously aware of certain beliefs. As you expand your consciousness, there are going to be new things outside of your understanding of yourself. And as you expand, you are going to suddenly become aware of these other programs or limiting beliefs that you weren't aware of before, or even just deeper layers of the same program that you weren't aware of before, like I'm not good enough or I'm not beautiful or people don't accept me, all of that. So the question is now, why is the old you resurfacing? Why are these old programs coming up? As we already talked about, obviously it has to do with, at one point, you weren't ready to fully address this, which is why it went dormant in the first place. You get this taste of more awareness when these programs are integrated. And for the record, this doesn't stop, because if you think about expansion is limitless. You are limitless. So the healing process doesn't end. And I think when we get in the mindset of there's a finish line, and once I reach this finish line, I'll be at a place where things are easy, there are no problems, it's all hunky-dory, then what's the word? When we get to that next stage in our evolution, and when we realize that there's more to do, we're chasing a moving target. It's like, have you seen those things where it's like there's the dog on the treadmill and there's like a bone and the dog just keeps running thinking it's about to get to the bone, right? It's like that's us with our healing journey, thinking once I reach this next stage of my evolution, everything will be perfect and everything will be easy and I'll be fine. And sadly, that is not the case, my friend. Yeah. Howdy. Hold on. Yeah. So as I said, so when we expand, expansion doesn't just go in one direction. So as we expand, it's not just going to be like, ooh, I'm experiencing all these amazing things and now like life is perfect. You're going to expand in all directions, which means you are going to become more and more aware of some of the denser things in your field or in your limiting beliefs or in your mind or whatever. And in order to continue to expand, you have to address these things. But they're not going to come up in your field until you've expanded to that point, right? I hope that makes sense. All right. Yeah, we must become aware and integrate the unconscious self. So we have to go low with our new perspective. So every time we grow and expand, we'll have to come back to things to address unconscious layers of that thing that we're not aware of. I want to explain this in an example of the context of another person. So like, you know, when you get to know someone and you feel like you completely understand them, but the more times you see them, you see different things about them that you didn't know before. So it feels like the more you learn about that person, the more you realize that you actually don't know them or don't know as much about them as you think you do. And it's kind of the same with yourself and these other aspects of yourself. The moment you feel like you understand all of what you are, there's going to be more for you to discover. And same with the universe. Same with everything. I hope this is making sense. I think it's making sense. I did a live on my Patreon. If you want more of me, go there. But I did a live on my Patreon, and while I was doing it, I'm like, am I making sense right now? And then I went back and I was like, I was making sense. That's good. I'm really glad. And even though I went off topic, I don't think it was a bad thing. I love your narration. Thank you. As a trans girl, she hit me in the heart with accepting you're not perfect. Everyone has room to grow and adapt in life, and no one is ever done learning about themselves. Aw, that's awesome. Thank you. Also, that's cool. Like, I love like seeing comments of people who all have like different identities and are from different places around the world. And I'm just like, whoa, there's someone in Finland watching me? Like, hi, cool. That's awesome. That's fair. I'm ready to face a lot of stuff when I was younger. Yep. All right. It makes sense. I'm glad. All right. I'm gonna keep going. So, as you saw from the thumbnail, I'm really, when we talk about going backwards, we're talking about the healing spiral. You can think of this as an onion where there's different layers and you can keep going deeper, or you can even think of it as like, what are those things called? Oh, not the Venn diagrams. Oh, dang it. It's going to bother me that I forgot the word of it. But those, those charts where it's like this and it keeps going out instead of like going in. Anyways, I think that's a better explanation of it anyway, because it's like expanding. I don't know. Right, or you can think of it as like, for example, like stocks. Like it's not just a straight line. It's gonna go. Well, I guess it's the opposite for you guys, because for me it's like reversed of me. It's not like a mirror, you know? Does that make sense? I think it does. Right. So as I said, healing is not one-dimensional. It has layers like an onion. And what comes to the surface is a layer that's ready to be healed and integrated. The more we get stuck in feeling like we're going backwards, or that if we're experiencing old patterns, that means that we're not as far along as we thought we were, the harder it's going to be for us to move forward. Because we're being stuck in this thought process of, oh, I'm still here. Like, why am I in this place? Instead of saying, cool, there's a lot of hard stuff that's coming up for me right now, but all of these challenges wouldn't be coming up for me if I wasn't ready to address them. One thing I have learned in my journey, which has been like the most liberating thing for me to realize, is some of the hardest things I have gone through has triggered the most growth. So for example, when I went through my spiritual awakening, I had it's kind of embarrassing, but I'm not actually embarrassed. COVID had just hit. I dropped all of my classes in school. I didn't tell my parents. I was just like, I'm just not gonna do it. I don't want to do it. Nope. And so I had a conversation with my parents, and they were very upset with me. And the conversation, long story short, was hard. And when I came forward being like, I'm really unhappy, and I've been unhappy for a really long time, and I don't know how life is going to get better than this, they basically were just like, well, you need to do better, and you can't be making excuses anymore. And so right after that, I left the house and I sat on a rock in the middle of nowhere and I meditated. And then I had this epiphany of like, oh my gosh, I'm not who I think I am. So the hardest conversation that I've probably ever had with my parents triggered a massive awakening. And I've had other conversations or arguments with them where it seemed like from an outside perspective, like I lost. But every time I have these really incredibly hard conversations where I feel super triggered and like anxious and angry, that's when I have the opportunities to grow. So really, when we feel like we're going backwards is a sign that we have the opportunity to grow even more and even beyond what we thought we were at previously, right? Which is why, as I think most people in this kind of field talk about, gratitude is so important, and being grateful for the things that are really freaking shitty, because the shitty things are the things that make you grow. If you felt good all the time, think about it. If you are happy all the time, just like, oh, life is good, life's amazing, you wouldn't do anything to push yourself to evolve or change or grow. That's really uncomfortable. If you are happy with where you are 100% of the time, like let's say, for example, if you eat junk food, it's fine. I eat junk food too. But let's say like I eat a diet that's purely junk food. If that made my body feel good, why would I have any reason not to eat the junk food? But if I eat hot Cheetos and every time I eat them, I feel like, oh, like my stomach hurts, this doesn't feel right, I don't like it, then that's a motivator. That's an indicator from my body to me, telling me, hey, this isn't good for you. Let's find something that is in alignment with your body and something that fuels you properly. It's the same with our emotions. When we have certain emotions coming up, it's like, hey, there's certain things, certain behaviors are indicators that there's something in your field that's not in alignment to you, or something that is ready to be integrated or transmuted. If you didn't have those negative emotions to tell you that, then you would never change. And then you wouldn't grow and you wouldn't expand. So it's easy to think that these negative thoughts and negative emotions that are coming up means like we're being sucked back into this trap. And some of our behaviors will indicate that. But at the same time, this negativity and density is a gift to us, because without it, there would be no movement and no change. That wasn't even in my notes. That just like came right off the cuff. Hi, Danny. Hi, Sage of Secrets. How long has it been since your awakening? At this point, I would say over a year. Over a year since I've gone through my awakening. You're iconic. Thank you. Thank you, Polly. Raven says, I think I need to have some conversations as well after hearing you. Awesome. No, seriously, what I found is like, okay, I feel very blessed to have the family I do, because my parents are not necessarily on the same journey that I'm on, but they're very loving and understanding, and it's interesting because obviously it's not perfect from what like my human would want, but from a universal soul perspective, like they're the exact parents that I could, like the exact perfect parents that I could ask for to facilitate my growth. And at the same time, like the more I've grown, the more I've developed a closer bond with them, and also been able to see how a lot of my trauma and limiting beliefs comes from not like my parents specifically, because it is, but it's like the fact that that's a generational thing that has lasted for a long time. And this thread has been like passed down, and now it comes to me, and I'm doing a lot of work to shift that and change that. And also seeing how my mom has done her own version of her own work to shift some of the things she's learned. And then when I have kids one day, they're going to probably pick up on traumas that I didn't pick up on, and they're going to be able to evolve and shift. And I mean, that's how evolution happens, right? Is by like every generation getting better or expanding more. I don't know. I think it's really freaking cool. I feel very blessed. But yes, having those hard conversations is so awesome. It really is. I mean, they're hard. Like after some of the conversations, I've literally just bawled my eyes out. But that moment of just releasing that emotion is so liberating. So liberating. All right. So, how do we deal with going backwards? I have, let's see, 5 points on it. So, number 1, I think I've already mentioned this, but there's no finish line. Once you realize there's no finish line, you can take the pressure off of yourself. A lot of times we think, if I want X, if I want a healthy relationship, if I want to be successful, if I want to be a millionaire, then I need to be fully healed to get there. I need to deal with all of my trauma and all of my triggers. And once I'm done with that, then I can have this. But as I said, it's like the dog with the bone that's on a treadmill. You're never going to reach that bone. You're never going to be fully healed. Because once you reach that next stage, there's going to be more expansion, because expansion is limitless, right? And also, if you just look at other people, there's people who have a partner who they love with all of their hearts, and people who, are wildly successful and make tons of money, who are not the most conscious people, right? And so by that logic, thinking that you have to be fully healed in order to achieve certain things in your life, you're holding yourself back. Instead of seeing it as like, the more I expand, the more I guess, maybe not control you have over your reality, but the more sovereignty you have and the more power that you have to create the reality that you want. So in a way, yes, as you heal yourself or as you integrate or as you deprogram and program new beliefs into your mind, it will be easier for you to attract a certain partner or to have the confidence to create the abundance that you want. If you think you have to be done with this in order to get there, then you're never going to get there, because this idea of being fully healed is an illusion. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? Yeah, so the universe is limitless, and so are you, because you are the universe. Thinking all your problems will be solved in the future means you are not fully accepting the now. Ooh, that's really important. Oh my gosh, there was something I saw that's like, when you're trying to get to this place where you're fully healed, where you're trying to get to this place where, how do I even say this? When you're trying to get to this place where you're fully healed and have everything figured out, you are looking to the future to escape the problems of your now, instead of looking at where you are in this present moment and saying, oh my gosh, I accept where I am and I love where I am. And if for some reason, like, things don't ever get better than this, I'm okay with that. And I know that's hard when we're not in like the best situation. Like, for example, like right now I'm staying with my parents and my brother's coming home like in a couple of days, and I'm basically not going to really have a room. Like, this will be my room, but this is also the entrance to the house. So in that, I won't really have my own private space. So from one perspective, I may say, oh, this sucks. Like, why am I here? Like, I want to get somewhere where I can be in a private place and na. But if I say, you know, I accept the challenge of the circumstances and I love where I am, because this is an important part of my experience as a human. And when you embrace the challenge, that's when you're able to really learn the lessons of it. But if I'm in resistance to what is, and if I can't accept and be fully present in my reality at the vibration it's at right now, then how am I going to be able to handle this next reality where the vibration is higher and I will have to hold more space for different aspects of me, right? Okay. But accepting your now is so important, and something your girl still struggles with, and I really get better at it every day. And then I'm sure, like, I'll go to my next stage of my process and be like, wait, what the heck? I thought I had this figured out, but I didn't. All right. So the second thing to help you with dealing with this feeling of going backwards is sometimes you have to constrict to expand. Okay, so if you think about, like, have you ever just tried to breathe in a lot of air at once? And then, like, you know what I'm saying? Like you can't do it as much at first. You like build it up by being like this, right? Do you know what I'm saying? Like, okay, if you think about stretching, sometimes at first it's too tight, so you have to like, so you like breathe into it to let it go deeper. And sometimes there's this almost like this back and forth a little bit to really get there. Sometimes we have to constrict in order to expand. So, as I've said, emotions lead us to old, bad coping skills or patterns. And this is the symptom of our belief system and these limiting beliefs that are now coming to the surface. So, wait, hold on, I forgot what I just said. Okay. All right. So for example, if anxiety has been a common theme for me, and let's say when I'm anxious, I'm used to, for example, smoking a cigarette to help ease the anxiety and kind of give me a break from what I'm feeling. If I get to a place where anxiety is not as big of a deal in my life, and therefore I quit smoking cigarettes, and then I'm doing fine, and suddenly there's more anxiety that I haven't addressed yet, or the deeper layers of the anxiety that's like, all right, now that you're in this new vibration, you're ready to address me, so I'm going to come up again. And then you're like, oh my God, I'm feeling this anxiety again. And so because your familiar coping pattern is let's smoke a cigarette and feel better, you're going to be like, okay, so you go buy a pack of cigarettes and you smoke them again. You're like, why did I go back to this? Like, why am I back in this same place that I was before? Why am I smoking the cigarette again? It's not actually about the cigarettes. It's about the fact that this anxiety has come up again, and the familiar pattern for you to deal with this is to smoke a cigarette, right? And so it's about learning, okay, I am responding to the same kind of emotion in the way I used to respond to it. So the question is, what can I do now to respond to this differently? What does this emotion need from me? What can I do for myself? Right? All right, there's more I have to say. I just want to check my notes. So if you didn't have the indicator of going backwards, you wouldn't know that you're still holding these old limiting beliefs. If you weren't going back to smoking the cigarette, how would you know that the anxiety is still controlling you in a sense? All right, so I have an example written here. I'm just going to quickly read it and then maybe explain it. So exercise makes you feel weak. Ooh, okay, I already know what this says. So think about exercise. When you're working out and you keep lifting these weights, your body literally feels like it's starting to give out. And you're just like, oh my God. And suddenly, like these, 10 pounds, because I don't have a lot of muscle. So if you're lifting these 10 pounds and your arm feels like it's giving out, you're like, oh my God, I'm so weak. I can barely lift this 10-pound dumbbell. But then when you drop it, and maybe you're sore for a while, but by doing this, you're actually getting stronger. So what I mean by constricting is part of expansion is sometimes doing the healing stuff is going to tire us out and make us feel weaker. But then when we're actually tested, we realize that we've actually gotten stronger. So going back to, for example, to a conversation I had with my parents where we had like I don't even know if I'd call it an argument, more like I guess you'd call it an argument, but it wasn't a fight. I don't know. It was more like them being like, you need to take more responsibility. And I was like, I know. I feel like I need to be properly communicated to. And they were like, don't change the subject. But when I left that conversation, as I've said, I was crying and I was like, ugh. But how I was responding to myself in that moment was, I love you. I'm so proud of you for, what's the word? I'm so proud of you for speaking your truth and taking accountability and for being present there. And even though they may have not validated your emotions, I was able to validate myself. And in the whole time leading up to that, I was so triggered and even being snappy at my mom. And I was just like, oh, what has gotten into me? What am I doing? But then after having that conversation with them, and then feeling my own emotions and seeing how easy it was for me to be like, I'm so proud of you. I love you. That was amazing. Even though the conversation didn't go well, that moment of perceived weakness showed my strength for myself. So I don't know if the exercise analogy was the best analogy. I think it was good when I wrote it down. I don't know if it applied to what I just said, but I think the point of it is saying sometimes the things that make us feel weak can actually prove our strength. All right, so number 3, in terms of things to help us deal with going backwards, is to remember to be gentle to yourself and be kind to yourself. This is probably one of the biggest things I realized in like my spiritual awakening journey, because I think in our culture, in our society, it's very valued to be, what's the word? Hard on yourself. Our culture values people being hard on themselves and being hypercritical of themselves. And it's good to be aware of our shortcomings or things we may want to grow and work on. But when we're hard on ourselves and are like hating ourselves for not doing things right, then it doesn't help, is what I've basically realized. When you're actually gentle with yourself and honest with yourself, you create this environment within yourself where you feel safe to fuck up and you feel safe to make mistakes and do things wrong, right? So I'm just like reading my notes. Ooh. So this is another interesting thing to think about. So as I said at the beginning of the video, I said, just because you're going backwards doesn't mean, okay, just because you feel like you're going backwards doesn't mean you actually are. It just means these other deeper layers are coming up, right? But let's just, for the sake of simplicity, say you do believe you're going backwards. And let's just say you are going backwards. You have to accept that that's a viable reality. And that even if you are going backwards, that doesn't make you worth less. That doesn't make you not good enough. That doesn't make you less as a person. And you can accept that even if that is the case, that that's okay. And that I accept that maybe I'm not where I was 5 months ago. And in that, what we fear is going to happen when we do that is, well, then I'm going to get complacent where I am. I'm not going to grow and I'm not going to expand. But let me ask you this. When you're shitting on yourself and being really hard on yourself for not doing all the things that you think you should be doing or not being as healed as you think you should be, and you're just being super mean to yourself, how is that helping you? Like, how is that affecting your reality? Is that helping you outside of you feeling like at least you're calling yourself out on your own bullshit? As I've said in my previous video, the person that hates themselves and uses that as a motivator to go to the gym and work out. A person who looks in the mirror and says, I hate my body, I need to work out more, I need to create a body that I like. When that person doesn't go to the gym, how are they going to feel? What are they going to use to cope with those emotions? So it's like there's this pattern of yes, they're using this negativity to get themselves to do a certain activity. But since they're going into that activity with a low vibration, they're feeding the fear and they're feeding this belief that they're not good enough. And so they're watering that seed of I'm not good enough. I'm not worthy. In order to be good enough in any capacity, I have to do X. Instead of saying I am worthy as I am right now. And I want to love myself and expand myself and I want to create the reality I want. And for the sake of this example, I want to create the reality where I really love my body. How do I honor my body? How can I listen to my body? Okay, I want to work out and I want to go to the gym. And so you're coming into that experience with a higher vibration. So you're planting and watering the seed of I am good enough. I love myself. And so that's the fruit that you're growing. When we're gentle with ourselves and when we accept ourselves where we are now, we say, I am good enough as I am. I don't have to prove my worth. And so when we do certain things, so for example, let's say you want to start a YouTube channel, you start a YouTube channel if you don't start it with the belief of this is going to prove how awesome I am and how worthy I am and that people can love me, then if that result isn't reflected back to you, you're not going to perceive this entire thing as a failure and as proof that you're not good enough, because you didn't create this with the seed of I'm not good enough. You planted it with the seed of I am good enough, and this is a form for me to express myself and love myself. Right? So, the negative thoughts that come up, don't resist them. I remember when I first started going to therapy, I was talking to my therapist and I was like, I just don't want to think about these things. I hate these bad thoughts. I don't want them. I want them to go away. And she was like, well, you can't just not think about them. That doesn't work. And I was like, why not? And she was like, okay, don't think about a pink elephant. What are you thinking about? And I was like, a pink elephant? Exactly. When these bad, chaotic thoughts come up, when we try to say, no, don't think about that. I don't want to think about that. All you're doing is suppressing those thoughts and those beliefs, which means you're literally telling these things that are like, okay, become conscious of me, become aware of me, address me. You're telling them, nope, I want you to be unconscious. Nope, I want you in the background. I don't want to have to pay attention to you. When these things come up, it's an opportunity to be curious and to be like, oh, this thought that's telling me that I'm ugly. Why are you here? What do you believe? And you're holding love and space for these thoughts, or just observing them and watching them go by like a cloud, instead of being like, oh God, these bad thoughts means I'm going backwards. It means I'm not healed. And, you know, and this is something I relate to, too. Yeah. Whatever you resist persists. So do with that what you will. So remain aware of your old patterns. Stay in love, not judgment. And if your judgment is too loud, love your judgment. This is very true. I'm like, this is so true. And it's just like things I wrote down in my notebook. But yeah. Sometimes we can't help that the judgment is going to come up. And so instead of like having these judgments come up and just unconsciously being like, yes, I'm judging this. Or like the judgment comes up and it's like, oh no, I just judged myself. And then you just keep going in this cycle of, I'm judging myself. Oh no, I judged myself. How bad? Oh no, I just thought it was bad for judging myself. And it's this cycle of negativity feeding off of itself. You can instead have the judgment and be like, ooh, I see you. I see the judgment. All right, I'm aware of you. And then you let it go. Right? I don't know, that's easier said than done. People are like, just let it go. And you're like, what the fuck does that mean? I'm used to being like, you can let it go. I know it's hard because I can't tell you exactly how to do it because everyone, not even just everyone is different, but it kind of just is as simple as that. But it takes time to learn how to do that because we're machines, right? Like our brain is literally like a biological machine. And so if our machine has the program of grab onto it, don't let it go, then it's going to be really hard to let go because you have to like, for example, this is just an analogy. I was on a rock climbing wall at a gym. I don't even really have a fear of heights. And the belay was not very tight. So when I had to jump off the wall, when I got to the top, I was like, it doesn't feel like I have anything supporting me. I logically knew that this rope was there and that if I jumped down, I would be okay and I would just do the little but I literally was like, frick, I can't jump down. Like everything in my body is telling me, don't do it. Even though I knew I'd be fine. And so it took me a second to be like, okay, I'm going to be fine. All right, let's do it. And then I jumped down the wall and of course I was fine. Even though everything in my body was telling me, It's the same with learning to be gentle with yourself and letting go of thoughts and a lot of this stuff. If you're used to being like this and someone's like, let go, you're like, but I can't. I can't. My body's telling me no. Instead of being like, all right, my body's telling me no. I know this is what's right for me and this is really hard. All right, I let you go. And sometimes you're going to grab onto it again because that's what's familiar to you. But the point is, just because something feels like impossible because it's not familiar doesn't mean it actually is impossible. Be aware of the story you tell yourself. Yes. All right. Yeah, so remember that this is a normal part of the process. The feeling of going backwards is a normal and important part of healing. So sorry, I had to burp. Don't forget how far you've come. You're doing freaking amazing. So, number 4, keep an eye out for physical manifestations of your internal dilemma. Ooh, girl. Yes. So as I said, for example, having this conversation with my parents, literally as it was happening, I was like, wow, the universe could have not orchestrated a better dynamic, situation, conversation than this for the next stage of my healing and growing. And as you become more conscious and more aware, you start to see how literally everything in your reality, all the freaking sucky things that you don't deserve, serve a purpose to reflect what's going on in your head. And at the same time, it's also it's interesting because it's what's going on in your head is a reflection of your reality. And then does this make sense? Because if you're raised in an environment with people who are attracting certain things in their reality and your mind is just open and almost like a blank slate in some senses, then you're going to be collateral damage of that environment. Do you know what I'm saying? And so then that's, I don't even know exactly all the things with generational trauma because I think as I keep going, I'll learn more and more and more. But at least in terms of the nurture part of it, that's anyways. It's funny, I've noticed because as I've said earlier in this live, I'm am I making sense? Does this make sense? And I think this is because I'm used to being around people where I talk about this stuff and they're just okay. And then I'm just so anyways, it's interesting. Me explaining my thought process. You're welcome. Okay. Right, so look out for physical manifestations of your internal dilemma. So if you're struggling to stand up for yourself, pay attention to how the universe provides you the opportunity for you to challenge yourself. So for example, if I have a fear of rejection, which I do, very strong fear of rejection. If I have a fear of rejection, when I put myself out there, because I have this fear in my field, I'm going to attract that experience of rejection in my external reality because it's what's happening in my internal reality. There's aspects of me that are rejecting other aspects of me. And so I am going to see that manifested outside of myself. This external manifestation is an opportunity for me to address what's really going on within. When we pay attention to what's actually happening in our physical reality, even if it's subtle, it can provide us the opportunity to become more aware of what's within us. Oftentimes when we're on this healing journey or on this spiritual path, we'll be around certain friends or family members and certain difficult conversations will happen and we'll kind of feel above it all and be oh yeah, this whole challenging conversations for them and I'm just here to be the facilitator of it. Bitch, you're a human too. So this conversation is also in your field and in your reality for a reason. So we like to think oh, this person criticizing me is just how they feel about themselves, which totally can be true. And at the same time, it's important for you to also use that as an opportunity to be what am I learning here? Maybe it's not exactly just what they're saying, but what emotions or triggers are coming up within you that shows you what traumas you're still holding on to. Right? So, yeah, the universe will always provide you the chance for you to expand. So the universe meets you where you are at. I know I've talked about the conversation with my parents enough, and I think you guys can piece together how like it applies. And there's more things than just that, but I think that's probably the best example, just because for me personally, I've seen like those conversations triggering the most growth within myself in comparison to other things that I've experienced. What is this? Whoa, sorry, this is kind of trippy to me. I don't know why. Yeah, so the universe will always provide you for the chance to expand. So pay attention to what's in your physical reality. All right, and number 5 on how to deal with going backwards. Intentionally assign meaning to this low. A lot of times when we assign meaning to things, it will be really unconscious. So for example, if we reach out to a friend and say, hey, let's hang out on Saturday, and they say, no, thanks, I'm fine. We might take that as, oh my God, they hate me. Oh my God, like, did I say something wrong? What did I do? And you create this meaning of their rejection or their not accepting of your invitation of their invite. I don't know, invite? Sure. Them not accepting your oh my gosh. Them not accepting your request to hang out means that they're rejecting you, or they don't like you, or they don't want to ever see you again. All things that may be true, right? But you're tying that experience to the story of, I'm not lovable. I'm not good enough. People never accept me. People don't love me. Instead of taking the opportunity to see it from a different perspective. They're not resonating with my energy right now, and that doesn't mean anything about me. Maybe they're not accepting my invitation because there's someone else who might be coming into my life. Maybe this friendship is falling apart because there's new relationships that are coming in, and the universe is opening up space for me. Maybe it just wasn't in the cards for us to hang out Saturday. You can still accept the reality of, okay, maybe this person doesn't like me right now. Maybe this person isn't vibing with me. But when we create the story or continue to play out the story of this means I'm not lovable, I'm not good enough, we continue to water that seed. And that's going to keep us stuck in what we perceive as backwards, what we perceive as the old self. We have the choice. And it's not an easy choice to make because our familiar program is one thing, and making a conscious choice is a completely other thing. But when you choose the meaning that serves you, it's an opportunity to grow. And it's an opportunity to integrate new thought processes into your mind. So I really hope you guys enjoyed this live. I think it went well. I hope it did. It's funny, I know, like, do you ever say something and in the moment you're saying it, you're like, this doesn't feel cringy now, but I feel like I'll watch this in like 5 years and be like, oh my God, stop talking. Oh my God. And then even me, like, sorry, just like I'm seeing like the self-deprecation and like, whoa, interesting. This is my brain. My brain is like, I do something and I'm like, ooh, I see you. I accept you. And then there's still an aspect of me that's like, no, I don't. And I'm like, I see you and I accept you too. This is just confusing. It's amazing and awesome. And it's like really, it's like so confusing and complex and like, what the hell? but also really simple and easy and just like, duh. Like, usually the answers where you're like, what do I do? What's happening? It's the simplest answer. And once you realize it, you're like, doi. Like, how did I not know that? How did I not know that? Anyways, I'm just going to read some of your more recent comments. So before I log off, if you guys have any quick questions or anything, then please ask them. So, do you mean like if you suck at standing up for yourself, the universe will provide you more opportunities to stand up for yourself? Yes, that is exactly what I mean. If you, for example, are feeling like you're not good enough, the universe is going to provide you more scenarios where you don't feel good enough so that you can actually address that feeling, go within yourself, and then start to integrate the program of I am good enough. It's really weird. We think the external circumstance is going to like heal us or make it better when really it's kind of like the other way around. We accept the adversity and grow and integrate within ourselves, and then the universe starts to reflect those new beliefs back to us. Right? I really enjoyed it. I'm so glad, Raven. Thank you. That means you've changed, right? I don't know which one you're talking about. Too broad. Wow, I can relate so much. Awesome. I enjoyed what I saw of it. That's great. Thank you. Love me. Aggressively love yourself. Yes. Hell yeah. Will you make a video of this? I'm sure I will in the future. Since I just made a live, I think I'll probably like make a different video. I was originally, just to give you a preview of what video I was planning on doing this Wednesday, I was planning on making a video about like things that people don't tell you about self-love. But I feel like kind of what I'm being guided towards talking about is more like, you don't have to do the spiritual things to be spiritual, which is something I also just made a TikTok about. So yes, I will make a video about this in the future, I'm sure. But since I just talked about this, I'll probably discuss other things first. It's interesting to see your thought processes in real time. Thank you for sharing your time and thoughts today. I appreciate your helpful videos. Thank you so much, human being. I was saying the same thing to myself. It's like I rely on improving instead of being here with myself in the now. Hell yeah, I love that because it's very true. I can definitely relate to that. Is there even a meaning in suffering if the wounds make your mind less objective and make more unconscious mindsets? Well, that's the thing. Does meaning exist, or do we just create meaning? Because if meaning doesn't exist, then we get to create the meaning we want. And so it's hard because it's like if we're suffering, it's like, what can I make of this challenge and adversity that actually benefits me? Because when you think about suffering, one thing I talked about with my therapist that when she said, I was like, what? Was pain is inevitable. Pain is bound to happen, but suffering is a choice. And I was like, bitch, are you saying that I've been choosing to be miserable for the past, for my teenage years? It was very upsetting. And then what I realized is, obviously pain is inevitable. Bad things are going to happen. We, however, get to choose the story we tell ourselves, and it takes time to develop a new story that becomes automatic. And we can use that meaning to push us towards loving ourselves and expansion, and that story will have to shift and change as we shift and change. So it's interesting because can I even say that there is a meaning in suffering? No. But what I can say is you do get the choice to create that meaning. And you do get to choose what that meaning means to you specifically, right? I mean, here's the thing. I mean, this is at least where I am right now in my journey. There are certain things that I hold true to me and that I believe and I know intuitively. Technically, I don't have any physical evidence of what I believe, so I will always leave a door open to the fact that I could be wrong. Because I don't know what I don't know. You don't know what you don't know. So technically, from my point of view, is there a meaning of anything? No. However, we get to create that meaning. And, what a lot of teachers are doing is telling you, like, what meaning can you create that helps you create the best, most in alignment life for yourself, right? I hope that makes sense. And I hope that was also sensitive to the fact that, like, we don't deserve suffering, and yet it's so common. And like when we hear like there's like meaning or purpose or like something good behind it, it feels like invalidating. And I get that, because that's really how I felt when I first realized, what? I don't have to feel miserable all the time. Or like, not just I don't have to feel miserable all the time, but it's like my responsibility to not feel miserable, and like my reality is only going to reflect something different until I start creating something different within myself. You know what I mean? All right. If you cringe in the future when looking back, that's just growth, I think. Yeah, some people say that. Like, if you're not cringing at your past self, then are you growing? And I'm also like, I don't know, it's also my mind being like, I must accept my past self and I must never cringe at my past self again. And then I'm like on the floor like, oh God, why did I do that? It's very real. I would say that's probably one of my biggest challenges, is accepting my past, more unconscious self. I even look at TikToks from like 5 months ago and I'm like, God, why did I say that? Why? Can't wait for the new vid. Me too. By the way, I love your hair. It looks so pretty with your top. Thank you. My brother gave me this top for Christmas. That's what I was going to say. This brother was given to me by Top for Christmas. I think I've come to terms with an upsetting thought. Hell yeah. It is growth, but I think our criticism is centered from our conditioning, so we tend to criticize ourselves without even knowing that it's all programming. Well said. I do not know how to say your name, so I'm sorry. Mara. It makes me want to say like Mary J, but I don't think that's right. Mara Ja. Oh my gosh. Anyways. Sorry, I'm just going to read. All right. Anyways. I love you guys. Thank you so much for watching this live. I really appreciate you. And if you guys even stuck around for this last little blah, blah, blah part, awesome. All right. I love you guys. I will see you Wednesday, probably, if I'm done editing by